Waitress is unjustly fired for feeding 2 street children. But 15 minutes later, a luxurious SUV parks in front of the restaurant. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the flavor corner as Anna adjusted her navy blue apron for the umpteenth time that morning. Her slightly roughened fingers, from years of work, brushed the gold embroidery of the restaurant's logo. 3 years. 3 years since she first crossed that door, looking for an opportunity after the factory she worked for closed its doors. Anna, table 5. Joaquin, the head chef, called from the kitchen. The huevos rancheros are ready, coming. She responded, expertly balancing the steaming plates. The restaurant was one of those places that seemed to have always existed in the neighborhood, with cream-colored walls adorned with sepia photos of the old city, polished wooden tables, and the unmistakable scent of spices permeating every corner. Regular customers frequented it as much for the food as for the warm service Anna and her co-workers provided. "Good morning, Mr. Manuel," Anna greeted the elderly man who sat at his usual table by the window. "The usual?" The man looked up from his newspaper and smiled, a map of wrinkles forming around his eyes. "Anna, my dear, I don't know why you still ask after all this time. Because one day, you might surprise me and order something different," she joked, jotting down in her notepad. "Black coffee, no sugar, and green chilaquiles with extra cream. You know me better than my own children," Mr. Manuel laughed. "How's everything? You seem a bit tired." Anna allowed herself a moment's rest, leaning slightly on the empty chair across from the old man. "Yesterday's double shift was tough, Mr. Manuel. Lucia got sick, and I had to cover for her." "You work too hard, my dear." "You should." A commotion from the kitchen interrupted their conversation. The voice of Don Roberto, the restaurant owner, resounded with his characteristic irritated tone. "Joaquin, I told you I don't want to see that much oil waste. Do you know how much each liter costs?" Anna and Mr. Manuel exchanged knowing glances. Don Roberto was known for his obsession with costs and his volatile temperament. "I better go attend to other tables," Anna whispered. "I'll bring you your coffee in a moment, Mr. Manuel." The morning went on as usual. Breakfast transitioned to lunch, and the tables filled with office workers and nearby shopkeepers. Anna moved between tables with the grace that only years of practice can give, balancing plates, taking orders, and offering smiles. "Anna, can you take the new table?" asked Carmen, another waitress, as she prepared the bill for her customers. "I just sat a large family, and I'm a bit overwhelmed." "Of course," Anna replied, putting her notepad back in her apron pocket. "Where are they?" "The young couple by the back window." Anna walked toward the indicated table, where a man and woman were focused on the menu. As she passed the main window, something caught her attention. The sky, which had been cloudy all morning, began to release the first drops of rain. "Welcome to the Flavor Corner," she greeted the couple with her best smile. "May I take your order?" As she wrote down the order, a gust of wind hit the window, causing several diners to turn startled. The rain intensified for a moment. "Looks like it's coming down hard," the man at the table commented. "Good thing we arrived before it started." Anna nodded absently, her gaze captured by something beyond the glass. On the opposite sidewalk, under the scant shelter of a worn-out awning, 2 small figures were huddled together. "Miss?" The woman's voice brought her back. "Could you also bring us a pitcher of water?" "Of course, sorry," Anna replied, forcing herself to focus on her work. For the next hour, as the rain poured down harder, Anna couldn't help but glance occasionally toward the window. The 2 children were still there, getting more and more soaked despite their attempts to stay dry. One seemed to be shielding the smaller one with his body. "Carmen," Anna called her co-worker during a quiet moment. "Have you seen those kids? They've been there for over an hour." Carmen discreetly peeked. "Poor things. I've seen more street kids around the neighborhood lately. The crisis is hitting many families hard." Anna felt a knot in her stomach. She herself had gone through tough times in her childhood when her mother was left alone with 3 children to feed. "Anna." Joaquin's voice called her from the kitchen. "The order for table 12 is ready." The work continued, but Anna couldn't get the 2 kids out of her head. During her comings and goings, she noticed how they looked longingly every time she passed with plates of food. Their eyes followed each tray, and the smaller one unconsciously held his hand to his stomach. Around 3 in the afternoon, as the restaurant began to empty, Anna made a decision. Taking advantage that Don Roberto was in his office checking the day's accounts, as he did every afternoon, she approached Joaquin. "Joaquin," she started, hesitating a moment. Is there any soup left from the day? The chef, a sturdy man with a thick mustache and kind eyes, looked at the bottom of the pot. Enough for 2 good bowls. Why? Did someone order? Anna took a deep breath. Not exactly, she discreetly pointed toward the window. There are 2 kids there, Joaquin. They've been out in the rain for hours, and the way they look at the food. She didn't need to finish the sentence. Joaquin followed her gaze, and his expression softened. Don Roberto would kill us if he found out, he murmured as he began serving 2 generous bowls of hot soup. But my mother taught me that refusing a plate of food to the hungry is the worst sin. Anna smiled gratefully as Joaquin added 2 pieces of freshly baked bread. I'll take responsibility if there are any problems, she assured, taking the bowls. Be careful, warned Carmen, who had been listening. Don Roberto's in a bad mood after looking at last month's accounts. Anna nodded and, after making sure no customer needed her immediate attention, headed to the door. The cold and dampness hit her as soon as she stepped out, and she wondered how the kids had endured the rain for so long. Upon seeing her approach, the children tensed, as if expecting her to shoo them away. The older one, who couldn't be more than 8, instinctively stood in front of the younger one. Hi, Anna greeted softly, crouching to their height. I brought you something to eat. It's warm. The kids looked at her with a mix of surprise and distrust. The older one, his dark hair plastered to his forehead by the rain, was the first to speak. Really, is it really for us? Really, Anna confirmed, extending the bowls. My name is Anna. What are your names? I'm Miguel, the older one said, carefully taking one of the bowls. And this is my brother Luis. Luis, who didn't look older than 6, gazed at the soup as if it were the greatest treasure in the world. His small hands trembled as he took the spoon. It's really good, he whispered after the first sip, his voice so soft it barely rose above the sound of the rain. Anna felt her heart tighten as she watched them eat. She wanted to ask them so many things, where their parents were, why they were on the street, if they had a place to sleep. But she knew it wasn't the right moment, and she couldn't stay away from the restaurant for too long. When you're finished, you can leave the bowls right here, she indicated, pointing to a small spot sheltered from the rain. I'll come pick them up later. Thank you, Miss Anna, Miguel said with a maturity beyond his years. No one has. He couldn't finish the sentence, but Anna understood. With one last gesture of kindness, she returned to the restaurant, unaware that the security cameras had captured every moment of her act of kindness and that Don Roberto had been watching it all from his office monitors. Anna's fate was about to take a dramatic turn, but at that moment, as she watched through the window while the kids enjoyed their hot meal, all she could think was that she had done the right thing. Some rules, she thought, are meant to be broken when the heart knows it's the right thing to do. What Anna couldn't imagine was that this simple decision, made out of compassion and empathy, would set off a chain of events that would change not only her life but the lives of many others. The rest of the afternoon passed with an unusual calm. The rain had dissuaded many of the regulars from stopping by, and the empty tables allowed Anna to keep an eye on the children through the window. Miguel and Luis had finished every last drop of soup and now sat huddled under the awning, visibly more comfortable with full stomachs. Anna, dear, called Dona Patricia, a regular customer who always ordered chamomile tea with 2 packets of sweetener, could you bring me the check? Of course, right away. As Anna made her way to the cash register, Carmen approached her with a worried expression. Don Roberto has been in his office for over an hour, she whispered. You know how he gets when he spends too much time going over the numbers. Anna nodded absently as she printed the bill. Don Roberto had a habit of diving into his ledgers for hours, usually emerging with a sour mood and new rules to optimize costs. Joaquin. Don Roberto's thunderous voice suddenly echoed from his office. To my office, now. The head chef exchanged a quick look with Anna before removing his apron and heading toward the office. The few remaining customers looked up from their plates but quickly returned to their conversations, used to the owner's outbursts. Here you go, Dona Patricia, Anna said, handing over the bill with a forced smile. Would you like me to call you a taxi? The rain doesn't seem to be stopping anytime soon. No worries, dear. My son will come to pick me up, the old woman replied as she rummaged through her purse. By the way, I saw what you did for those children. You reminded me of my mother, rest her soul. She always said that a plate of food given with love nourishes more than a feast without heart. Anna felt her cheeks flush. I just did what anyone would do. No, my dear, Dona Patricia interrupted, taking Anna's hand in hers. Not everyone would, especially knowing it could cost them their job. Here, she slipped an extra bill along with her payment. This is for you, and I won't take no for an answer. But, Donna Patricia, shoo, save it. You might need it to help someone else. The sound of a door opening abruptly interrupted their conversation. Joaquin exited Don Roberto's office, his face pale, followed by the owner's voice. And tell Anna to come. Immediately, the chef approached Anna, who was already placing Donna Patricia's extra money in the register. Anna, Joaquin began, his voice tense. He knows. He saw everything on the cameras. Anna's stomach dropped, but she kept her composure. It's okay, Joaquin. We didn't do anything wrong. I told him it was my idea, but, no, Anna interrupted firmly. It was my decision. I'll take responsibility. Carmen quickly joined them. Anna, I can say I was involved too. Between the three of us. No, Anna interrupted again, removing her apron. You both have families to support. I'll be fine. As she walked toward the office, Anna glanced one last time through the window. Miguel and Luis were still there, playing a hand-clapping game to keep themselves entertained. For a moment, she thought of her younger brother and how her mother, despite all the hardships, always managed to put a meal on the table. Anna. Do I need to come out and get you? Don Roberto's voice brought her back to reality. Before entering the office, Anna took a deep breath. The air smelled of coffee and the rain that continued to fall outside. She took a moment to smooth her uniform and straighten her back. Whatever happened in the next few minutes, she would keep her dignity intact. Don Roberto's office was a small, austere space dominated by a metal desk and monitors displaying different areas of the restaurant. The owner stood with his hands pressed on the desk, wearing an expression Anna had never seen before. Close the door, he ordered curtly. Anna obeyed, noticing her hands trembled slightly. Through the closed door, she could hear the faint murmur of the last customers and the clinking of silverware against plates. The usual sounds of a normal day at the restaurant. But something told her that this day was far from normal. On the security monitors, a frozen image showed the exact moment she handed the bowls of soup to the children. Don Roberto pressed a button, and the scene began to replay silently, Anna crouching down, the children taking the bowls, the conversation that no one in the office could hear but was evident through their gestures and expressions. 3 years, Don Roberto began, not looking away from the monitors. 3 years working here, Anna. I thought you understood how things work. Sir, I'm not finished, he cut her off, turning to look at her directly. Do you know how much we lose each month in waste? In poorly calculated portions? In courtesies the waitstaff gives without consulting? Anna remained silent but held her gaze steady. Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance. This business doesn't run itself, Don Roberto continued, his voice gradually rising in volume. Every penny counts. Every plate, every utensil, every napkin. And you think you can just give away food? Without asking. To some, vagrants. The last word hit Anna like a slap. Her cheeks flushed, and for the first time since entering the office, she felt her trembling was not from nerves but indignation. They're children, she said, her voice firmer than she expected. Just 2 hungry children in the rain. Don Roberto slammed his hand on the desk, causing the monitors to shake. They're a precedent. He erupted. Today it's 2 kids, tomorrow, it's 4. Next week, there will be a line of beggars at the door. Do you think customers want to see that while they eat? The customers, Anna paused, recalling Donna Patricia's words, Mr. Manuel's understanding look when he saw what she had done, the discreet approval gestures from other patrons. The customers have hearts, sir. And those children. Enough. Don Roberto interrupted. We're not running a charity. This is a business, and clearly, you don't understand how a business works. Anna felt something break inside her. It wasn't fear, it wasn't sadness. It was the certainty that, whatever happened in the next few minutes, she wouldn't regret her decision. The wall clock read 4:37 p.m. when Don Roberto's office door swung open violently. The few customers left in the restaurant, sheltering from the persistent rain, looked up from their plates and cups of coffee. Get out of my office. Don Roberto's voice boomed throughout the restaurant. This isn't over. Anna emerged with her head held high, though her hands trembled slightly. Joaquin and Carmen exchanged worried glances from their positions. The tension in the air was palpable. Excuse me, could you bring me more coffee? A customer asked from a nearby table, trying to act normally. Before Anna could respond, Don Roberto appeared behind her, his face flushed with anger. She won't bring anything else. he exclaimed, his voice charged with barely contained fury. In fact, all of you will witness this. Donna Patricia, who hadn't yet left because of the rain, straightened up in her seat, her eyes narrowing with concern. Don Manuel folded his newspaper slowly, fully attentive to the scene unfolding. Don Roberto, Carmen intervened, stepping forward, maybe we should discuss this in private. Silence. The owner cut her off. This will serve as an example for all employees. Anna stood still, her uniform still immaculate despite the tension of the moment. A young couple at the window table had stopped eating, their forks suspended midair. Sir, Anna began with a calm voice, I understand your anger, but, do you understand? Don Roberto let out a dry laugh. Do you understand that you just violated all restaurant policies? That you put my business's reputation at risk? From the kitchen, Joaquin peeked out, holding a spatula as if it were a shield. Boss, if I may, you go back to the kitchen. Don Roberto barked. This is between her and me. A middle-aged woman near the cash register began discreetly recording with her phone. Her companion nudged her gently, but she shook her head and continued filming. Don Roberto, Anna kept her voice steady, it was just 2 bowls of soup for 2 hungry children. I can pay for them, there's no need to. 2 bowls today. He interrupted, gesturing toward the window where Miguel and Luis were still huddled under the awning. And tomorrow, what? The whole street? The entire city? A murmur of disapproval rippled through the restaurant. Donna Patricia slowly stood up from her seat, leaning on her cane. Roberto Mendez, she called clearly, I knew your father when he opened this place 40 years ago. He would never. This isn't my father's restaurant anymore. Don Roberto interrupted. Times have changed. We can't keep a business by giving food to every vagrant that, they're children. Anna's voice rose for the first time, surprising everyone. Look at them. They're soaked, hungry, scared. What kind of people would we be if? Don Roberto's face turned purple. You're fired. Don Roberto roared, his voice making the silverware on the tables tremble. Not only do you give away my food, but you bring beggars into my business. The silence that followed was deafening. The only sounds were the rain pattering against the windows and the distant hum of the kitchen refrigerator. Anna, holding back tears but keeping her dignity, replied softly, Sir, they're just 2 hungry children. If you want, you can deduct the cost of the food from my wages. In a fit of anger, Don Roberto tore the apron from Anna's uniform and threw it to the floor. Out of my restaurant. Right now. The scraping of a chair broke the tension. Mr. Manuel had stood up, his usually hunched figure now erect with indignation. I've had breakfast in this restaurant for 15 years, he declared gravely. But after this, I won't set foot in here again. Then go. Don Roberto spat. I don't need customers who support this kind of behavior. More people began to rise. The woman recording put her phone away and approached the cash register. I'd like to pay my bill, she said firmly. And I want it noted that I won't be coming back. Neither will I, her companion added. Donna Patricia approached Anna, taking her hands in her own. Dear, you've shown more humanity in one gesture than this man has in all the years I've known him. Out! Don Roberto shouted. All of you, if you want. This is my business, and things here are done my way. Carmen removed her apron and placed it on the counter. Then I'm leaving too, she declared. I can't work in a place like this, Carmen. Don Roberto's voice wavered for the first time. If you walk out that door, don't bother coming back. Joaquin emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands on his apron. Don Roberto, he began calmly, my mother worked in this restaurant for 20 years. She taught me that food nourishes not just the body but the soul. If she saw this, you too. Don Roberto turned to him. Has everyone gone crazy? This is a business, not a charity. The remaining customers started to rise one by one, some leaving bills on their tables, others heading to the cash register to pay. The sound of chairs scraping and murmurs of disapproval filled the room. An elegant woman who had been silent until then approached the door but paused before leaving. My husband is a journalist for the City Daily, she announced. It will be interesting to see how people react and they read about this tomorrow. Don Roberto momentarily paled, but his anger overcame his caution. Write whatever you want. This is my restaurant, and I decide who eats here. Anna, who had remained silent for the past few minutes, picked up her apron from the floor. With deliberate movements, she folded it carefully and placed it on the counter. Thank you for the 3 years, Don Roberto, she said with dignity, contrasting sharply with the owner's rage. I hope one day you understand there are things more important than money. Out, was his only response. As Anna headed toward the door, several customers began to take out their phones, some recording, others typing messages or social media posts. The scene had turned into an unexpected spectacle on that rainy afternoon. Donna Patricia hobbled to the door. "Roberto," she said, her voice filled with disappointment, "your father built this place with sweat, but also with heart. Today, you've dishonored his memory." The restaurant began to empty. Some customers left generous tips on their tables, clearly intended for Anna. Others simply shook their heads in disapproval as they exited. Carmen and Joaquin exchanged glances, unsure what to do. Don Roberto, noticing their hesitation, burst out again, "What are you staring at? Get back to work. This is still a business." But the damage was done. The restaurant, usually bustling at this hour, was now nearly empty. Only the sound of the rain and the occasional thunder broke the awkward silence. Anna stopped at the door, looking toward the children who were still under the awning. Miguel and Luis watched her with wide, worried eyes, as if they understood something bad had happened because of them. "Don't worry," Anna murmured, though she knew they couldn't hear her through the glass. It was worth it. As she opened her umbrella and prepared to face the rain, Anna couldn't imagine that this moment, this act of kindness that had cost her job, was about to spark a series of events that would change not only her life but the lives of many others. The last few customers leaving the restaurant began sharing what had happened on social media. The woman who had recorded everything uploaded the video online. The digital world began to turn, and 15 minutes later, a luxurious SUV would pull up in front of the restaurant, forever altering the course of this story. But for now, Anna was simply an unemployed waitress in the rain, with a clear conscience and a peaceful heart, knowing she had done the right thing. The rain had softened slightly when Anna crossed the street toward Miguel and Luis. The children looked at her with a mix of concern and guilt on their faces. "Miss Anna," Miguel whispered, his voice breaking, "did they fire you because of us?" Anna crouched down in front of them, holding the umbrella to cover all three of them. "No, sweetheart. They fired me for doing what was right. That's never anyone's fault." Luis, the younger one, suddenly hugged her, his wet clothes clinging to Anna's uniform. "I'm sorry," he murmured against her shoulder. "We were so hungry." Inside the restaurant, activity had come to a complete halt. Carmen and Joaquin stood by, unsure of what to do, while Don Roberto paced furiously among the empty tables. "Get back to work," he yelled, though there were no customers to serve. "This is still a business." Outside, a small group of former customers had gathered in the rain, many of them busy with their phones. "It's already on Twitter," a young woman commented, showing her screen to others. "The video is going viral." Donna Patricia, sheltering under the awning of the flower shop next door, shook her head sadly. "That man just destroyed his father's legacy in less than 15 minutes. Mr. Manuel, who had joined the group, nodded gravely. Antonio, his father, used to set aside food specifically for those who couldn't pay. He did it discreetly, of course, but we all knew. Meanwhile, inside the restaurant, Carmen looked out the window and watched Anna with the children. "Joaquin," she called quietly, "do you think we should?" The chef nodded before she finished her sentence. He removed his apron and hung it carefully. "Don Roberto," he said firmly, "I'm quitting." "What?" The owner turned abruptly. "You can't quit. Who's going to cook?" "Someone who has kept the spirit with which your father founded this place," Joaquin replied. "I can't do it anymore." Carmen also took off her apron. "Neither can I," she declared. "There are job openings in many places, but dignity isn't something you can recover so easily." Don Roberto stared at them, speechless, as they headed toward the door. "If you walk out that door, you're fired," he yelled, his voice breaking slightly. "That won't be necessary," Carmen replied without looking back. "We already quit." Outside, the video of the incident continued to spread on social media. Comments multiplied by the second. "What a disgrace. Boycott that restaurant. My grandmother ate there since it opened. She must be rolling in her grave. We need more people like that waitress and fewer like that owner." A local journalist who happened to be nearby had stopped to see the group of people. Now, she was interviewing some witnesses while her photographer captured images of the restaurant and of Anna with the children. "It's incredible," the reporter commented as she took notes. "In times when social media exposes so much negativity, a story of genuine humanity." Mr. Manuel approached Anna, who was still with the children. "Anna, dear," he said softly, "come with me. My wife has a small cafe a few blocks away. We can give you work there while. A sound of shattering glass interrupted the conversation. Inside the restaurant, Don Roberto had thrown a stack of plates to the floor in a fit of rage. "It's all your fault," he shouted, though no one inside was left to hear him. "You've ruined my business." The journalist approached Anna with her microphone. "Miss, could you tell us what happened exactly?" But before Anna could respond, a powerful engine roared, drawing everyone's attention. A sleek black Range Rover slowly made its way down the street, stopping in front of the restaurant. Destiny was about to take another turn, though no one could anticipate it yet. For now, they were just a group of people in the rain, united by an act of kindness that had unleashed a storm far greater than the one pouring from the sky. Anna hugged the children tighter, feeling that, despite losing her job, she had gained something much more valuable, the certainty that doing the right thing, no matter the cost, is always worth it. The black Range Rover remained still under the rain, its dark windows reflecting the scene like a silent mirror. The engine purred gently as if fate itself held its breath before revealing its next move. After what felt like an eternity, the door of the Range Rover opened. A man in his 50s, dressed in a tailored navy suit that seemed impervious to the rain, stepped out. His presence commanded immediate attention, but his expression held something more than authority, it held purpose. He adjusted his umbrella, his gaze sweeping over the small crowd until it rested on Anna. "Good afternoon," he greeted in a voice both steady and kind. "May I know which one of you is Anna?" A murmur rippled through the crowd. Still holding the umbrella over herself and the children, Anna hesitated, then stepped forward. "That's me, sir." The man studied her for a moment before a faint smile softened his face. "My name is Carlos Mendieta, owner of the Sabor y Corazon restaurant chain." A new wave of whispers moved through the onlookers. Sabor y Corazon was one of the country's most respected and successful chains, known for combining quality food with community support initiatives. Don Roberto, who had been watching the scene from inside, quickly exited the restaurant, his expression transforming from anger to surprise. "Mr. Mendieta. What an honor to have you here. If I'd known you were coming." "I didn't come for you," Mendieta interrupted coldly, his attention never wavering from Anna. "I came because I saw something extraordinary in a video. I witnessed humanity in its purest form." The journalist, sensing an even bigger story, edged closer, her microphone discreetly pointed at Mendieta. "Miss Anna, may I ask why you did it? Why did you risk your job to help two children you didn't know?" Anna looked at Miguel and Luis, who were still huddled under the umbrella, then back at Mendieta. "Because it was the right thing to do. There are moments in life when you don't overthink, you just act from the heart." Mendieta nodded slowly, as though her answer confirmed something he already knew. "You know, my restaurant chain is called Sabor y Corazon for a reason. My mother used to say that food without heart is just ingredients. The real flavor comes from the love with which it's served." Don Roberto tried to interject. "Mr. Mendieta, please, if I could explain the situation." "The situation is clear enough," Mendieta replied, his tone courteous but firm. "In fact, I came here to do two things." He turned to face the crowd, including the journalist, who was now recording openly. "First," he announced, "I would like to offer Miss Anna a managerial position at one of my restaurants, with a salary 3 times what she earned here." Anna's eyes widened, and murmurs of approval rippled through the crowd. "And second," Mendieta continued, turning toward Don Roberto, "I am here to make an offer to buy this establishment." Don Roberto's face went pale. "What? But, this restaurant isn't for sale." "Everything has a price," Mendieta replied calmly. "And I have a vision for this place. I want to turn it into a restaurant that serves not only paying customers but also has a program to feed children in need." Dona Patricia, who had been silently observing, stepped forward, her eyes moist with emotion. "That is exactly what Antonio, Roberto's father, would have wanted." Mendieta smiled gently. "You knew the founder?" "Of course," she nodded. "He was a man who understood that a restaurant is more than a business. It's a place where people come to nourish not only their bodies but their souls." "Exactly," Mendieta agreed. "And that's the spirit I want to revive." He turned back to Anna, who still held Miguel and Luis close, shielding them from the rain. "So, Miss Anna, what do you say? Will you accept my offer?" Before Anna could answer, Luis tugged softly on her sleeve. "Does that mean you can still give us soup?" The question brought smiles to the faces of those watching, even softening Mendieta's normally serious expression. "In fact," he said, bending down to the children's level, "it means she'll be able to serve many more kids like you. And no one will scold her for it." Carmen and Joaquin, who had been observing from the sidelines, stepped forward hesitantly. "Mr. Mendieta," Carmen began, "we also resigned to support Anna. I saw the video," Mendieta nodded. And I was impressed by your loyalty. If you're interested, there's a place for both of you in my organization. Don Roberto, alternating between shades of red and white, finally found his voice. You can't just come in here and take over my business. I have rights. Of course, Mendieta replied, maintaining his composure. And you will be compensated generously. My assistant has the preliminary paperwork in the car. Would you like to discuss it in private? The man who had driven the Range Rover, dressed in an impeccable gray suit, was already retrieving a portfolio from the vehicle. The journalist seized the moment. Mr. Mendieta, may I ask what motivated you to come in person? Surely you have people who could handle this. Mendieta glanced briefly at the children before answering. There are moments in life when you need to act personally. When I saw that video, I saw more than a waitress feeding 2 children. I saw the essence of what it means to be human. And that deserves personal attention. He turned back to Anna. So, what do you say? Will you accept my offer? Anna looked at the children, then at her friends and finally at the restaurant where she had worked for 3 years. With one condition, she finally said. Mendieta raised an eyebrow, intrigued. And what would that be? That the program to feed children starts today, she said, holding Miguel and Luis's hands gently. Not tomorrow, not next week. Today. A genuine smile spread across Mendieta's face. It seems I've chosen well. Consider it done. The rain was starting to let up, and a ray of sunshine broke through the clouds as if the sky itself wanted to illuminate this moment. The journalist kept recording, aware that she was capturing something special. Don Roberto, after a brief discussion with Mendieta's assistant, seemed to lose all his previous bravado. I'll need time to think about it, he murmured, looking at the documents in his hands. Of course, Mendieta replied. But I'd advise you not to take too long. Good opportunities, like acts of kindness, sometimes require swift decisions. He turned to the small crowd that had gathered. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize, but I'll need the restaurant empty to discuss some details with Miss Anna and Mr. Roberto. The people began to disperse, though many stopped to congratulate Anna or shake Mendieta's hand. Anna, called Dona Patricia before leaving, your mother would be so proud. As the elderly woman walked away with her cane, Anna felt tears finally break free. But this time, they were different. Miguel looked up at her, concerned. Are you sad, Miss Anna? She shook her head, smiling through her tears. No, Miguel. Sometimes, we cry from happiness too. Mendieta watched the scene with an unreadable expression, as if he were seeing something beyond the obvious. His assistant approached quietly. Sir, should we proceed with the documents? Yes, Mendieta replied, not taking his eyes off Anna and the children. But first, make sure those kids have a hot meal. And let it be a generous portion. Fate had taken an unexpected turn, transforming a simple act of kindness into something much greater. But while everyone was focused on contracts, agreements, and future plans, no one noticed the subtle intensity in Mendieta's gaze as he looked at the children. There was something familiar about them that only he recognized. The next chapter of this story was about to reveal a connection that no one could imagine. But for now, under the sky clearing at last, it was enough to know that kindness sometimes has mysterious ways of changing the world. Inside the restaurant, a sense of tranquility had settled over the empty tables and vacant chairs, silent witnesses to the day's events. Don Roberto sat heavily at one of the tables, the preliminary documents spread before him. Don Roberto sat in silence, staring at the papers as though they were some kind of puzzle he couldn't solve. He murmured to himself, his hand running over his face as if trying to wake from a dream. All this, over 2 bowls of soup. Mendieta, who had invited Anna and the children to sit at a nearby table, shook his head, his voice steady yet kind. No, Roberto. It wasn't about the soup. It was about what the soup represents. Mendieta's assistant returned from the kitchen with 2 steaming bowls of stew and a basket of freshly baked bread for Miguel and Luis. The boys' faces lit up as they watched the food arrive, but they waited, looking at Anna for permission before touching it. Go ahead, little ones. Eat as much as you want, she encouraged, her smile warm and reassuring. From the doorway to the kitchen, Joaquin, who had lingered by request of Mendieta, peeked out with a shy smile. Mr. Mendieta, may I make a suggestion? He asked, his voice tentative but respectful. Of course, Joaquin. I value every suggestion here. If we're going to feed children in need, we should think of nutritious but affordable dishes. I have some recipes from my grandmother. Mendieta's eyes sparkled with interest. That's exactly the kind of thinking we need. Would you like to become the head chef of this new project? Joaquin blinked, stunned. Me? But I'm just a cook in a small restaurant. You're a cook who understands that food is more than ingredients, Mendieta replied. That can't be taught. Carmen, who had been tidying up some tables out of habit, approached cautiously. Sir, there are many other children in the neighborhood who might need help. I see them passing by almost every day. Make a list, Mendieta responded, nodding. I want this place to be a refuge for them. Don Roberto finally looked up from the papers, frustration etched across his face. And who's going to pay for all this? Good intentions don't pay the bills. Mendieta turned to him, his gaze serious but calm. Do you know why my restaurant chain is successful, Roberto? Because I understood something fundamental. A business that only cares about money is doomed to be mediocre. But a business that cares about people, that's the one people choose time and again. As the light from the clearing sky shone through the restaurant's windows, casting long shadows across the floor, an extraordinary transformation was taking place within the modest walls of the Flavor Corner. Outside, life returned to normal as the rain slowed, but inside, something unique and powerful was unfolding. Anna, Mendieta said, looking at her, have you had time to think about my offer? Anna looked at the children, now eating their meal with a quiet joy, and then let her gaze travel across the restaurant, lingering on every detail she knew so well. Yes, I accept. But, Mendieta chuckled softly, sensing her hesitation. Another condition, yes. I want to learn. Not just to manage a restaurant, but to truly create a program that helps children like these. They need more than food, they need hope. Mendieta's smile widened, clearly pleased with her answer. That's exactly the attitude I'm looking for in a manager. He gestured to his assistant. Prepare the contracts for everyone. And include a clause for continuous training. Don Roberto, who had been skimming the documents over and over, spoke at last. How much time do I have to decide? Mendieta checked his watch, his tone polite but unwavering. The offer stands until noon tomorrow. After that, I'll look for another location in the area. Luis, who had been listening while eating, looked up from his almost empty bowl. Sir, does that mean we can come here every day? A subtle shift crossed Mendieta's face as he looked at the boy, a shadow of recognition that was so brief no one else noticed. Of course you can, he replied, his voice unusually soft. In fact, but before he could finish, his phone vibrated. His expression changed as he glanced at the screen, his face tightening with concern. Excuse me for a moment, he said, stepping toward the entrance to take the call. Anna noticed the tension in his shoulders, and though she couldn't hear his words, she could sense an urgency in his tone. Miguel leaned in close to Anna. Miss Anna, do you think we'll really be able to come here every day? Of course you will, she replied, ruffling his hair affectionately. And not just you too. Many more children will have a safe place to eat here. What Anna didn't know was that fate had yet another surprise in store. While Mendieta spoke on the phone just outside, his expression fluctuated from concern to something deeper, a mix of emotions no one inside could see. The call was about to reveal a connection that would change this story forever. But for now, in the restaurant that was soon to become something far greater than a business, hope shone as clearly as the first rays of sunlight breaking through the rain clouds. And sometimes, that alone was enough. As Mendieta ended the call, he remained still for a moment, looking out at the street with a contemplative expression. Then, with a slow exhale, he turned back to the restaurant, his face thoughtful. Anna, he said, his tone softer, almost hesitant, there's something I think you should know. Anna looked at him with curiosity, while Carmen and Joaquin also turned their attention toward him, sensing the gravity of his words. Years ago, before I started my chain of restaurants, I was in a similar place to where you and these children are today. I came from a poor neighborhood. My mother struggled to put food on the table, and there were times we relied on the kindness of others to get by. One restaurant owner, in particular, would sometimes let us eat even if we couldn't pay. He never made us feel small or ashamed. In fact, he'd look at us with kindness and dignity. His name was Antonio. Antonio Mendez. A hushed silence fell over the group as Mendieta's words sank in. Dona Patricia gasped softly, covering her mouth in surprise. Yes, Don Roberto, it was your father, Mendieta confirmed, his gaze steady but kind. He was the one who taught me that a business, at its core, should have a heart. It should serve the community, not just for profit but for the good of those it touches. Don Roberto looked stunned, a mix of disbelief and remorse in his eyes. I didn't know, he murmured, shaking his head. Mendieta nodded gently. Maybe it's been a long time, Roberto, but his legacy isn't lost. It lives on in the people he helped, and today, you have the chance to honor that memory by choosing to make a difference, just as he did. Anna's eyes shimmered with newfound respect, not only for Mendietta's success but for the compassion and humility that lay behind it. For the first time, she felt that this opportunity was more than just a job, it was a chance to be part of something larger, to help create a new chapter in a story that had begun years before. Mendieta turned to Miguel and Luis, who were listening quietly, a bit of bread still in Luis's hand. "Boys, you are always welcome here. And you'll have more than just soup, you'll have a place to belong, a place that cares about you." Miguel looked up, his eyes shining with a mixture of hope and gratitude. "Thank you, sir. Really, thank you." Mendieta knelt down to their level, looking at them both with a warmth that could only come from personal experience. "One day, I hope you both will grow up to help others, just as I was helped. Remember, kindness isn't a debt. It's a gift to be passed on." Luis wrapped his arms around Mendieta in a hug, and Miguel followed, both boys expressing a gratitude too profound for words. Mendieta embraced them gently, visibly moved by the connection he now felt to their story, one that echoed his own childhood struggles. Dona Patricia approached Anna, her cane tapping softly against the floor as she laid a hand on Anna's shoulder. "Anna, my dear, I've seen many people come and go, but it's rare to find someone with your strength and heart. Don't ever lose that, no matter where life takes you." Anna smiled, feeling tears pricking at her eyes again. She had arrived that morning as an ordinary waitress, but now she was leaving as someone who had found purpose and a family beyond blood. "Thank you, Dona Patricia," she replied, squeezing the old woman's hand. "Your kindness means so much to me." Mendieta stood, a renewed energy radiating from him as he addressed Carmen, Joaquin, and Anna. "Together, we'll make this place more than just a restaurant. We'll make it a symbol of hope for the neighborhood, a place where everyone feels welcome." Carmen and Joaquin nodded, both clearly inspired by his vision. They were no longer just employees, they were part of a team with a mission that went beyond serving food. As the first golden rays of the late afternoon sun spilled into the restaurant, illuminating the once somber space, Mendieta looked at Don Roberto one last time, offering him a final chance. "Roberto, you can still be a part of this. You have the opportunity to bring your father's legacy full circle. It's not too late to embrace what he believed in." Don Roberto's face softened, and for the first time, he seemed genuinely moved. A lifetime of ambition and profit-driven decisions flickered in his eyes, overshadowed by the memories of his father and the realization of how far he'd drifted from that original purpose. After a long pause, he nodded, his voice choked with emotion. I would like that, Carlos. I want to make things right." A wave of relief swept through the room as Mendieta placed a reassuring hand on Roberto's shoulder. "Then let's do it together. We'll rebuild this place, not only for profit but for the people who need it most." With that, Mendieta turned to the group, his gaze warm and encouraging. "This is the start of something new, something built on compassion, unity, and purpose. Together, we'll create a place where everyone can find hope, just as I did all those years ago." And as they all stood together, surrounded by the lingering scent of coffee, fresh bread, and the last drops of rain tapping against the windows, it became clear that the Flavor Corner was no longer just a restaurant. It was a beacon of kindness, a place where, no matter one's story, there would always be room at the table. In the days that followed, the Flavor Corner underwent a transformation, both in spirit and appearance. The news of Anna's story and Mendieta's plans for the restaurant spread quickly, capturing the community's attention and sparking widespread support. Donations started arriving at the restaurant, some from customers, others from locals who had never even dined there but felt moved by the story. Boxes of canned food, sacks of rice, and fresh produce filled a corner of the kitchen, contributions from neighbors eager to support the new vision. The restaurant's once muted decor began to change as well. The walls, once plain, were soon adorned with colorful paintings created by local artists. Photos of the community's history, including snapshots of Antonio Mendez, the original owner, were framed and displayed, a reminder of the restaurant's deep roots and the legacy it now carried forward. Underneath these, there was a new sign that read, "Asterisk, where every plate is served with heart." Asterisk. Anna, now the restaurant's manager, embraced her new role wholeheartedly. Each day, she worked alongside Carmen and Joaquin, who had officially joined Mendieta's team. Together, they developed a new menu that not only served paying customers but also included a special section for those who needed a meal and couldn't afford it. The Heart Menu, as they called it, offered nutritious dishes made from donations, and anyone was welcome to order from it, no questions asked. Miguel and Luis became regulars, coming in after school to do their homework in a cozy corner by the window while they waited for their meal. Anna often checked on them, bringing them extra bread or a glass of milk, and over time, more children in need started appearing, timid at first, then emboldened by the warm welcome they received. One day, as the restaurant bustled with both regular customers and children from the neighborhood, Mendieta visited. He observed the lively atmosphere, the laughter of children mixing with the conversations of diners, and the scent of Joaquin's freshly made soup wafting through the air. He found Ana near the entrance, arranging a bouquet of fresh flowers donated by a local florist. "Ana, this place, you've turned it into something truly special," he said, admiration evident in his voice. Ana smiled, looking around at what had become a second home for so many. "It's all of us, Mr. Mendieta. You, Carmen, Joaquin, and everyone who supported us. This place belongs to the community now." Mendieta nodded, his expression contemplative. "You know, my mother used to say that a place like this can change lives. I didn't fully understand it until now." He turned, watching as Carmen served a table of children, her face lighting up as they told her about their school day. Joaquin was in the kitchen, calling out orders with a smile, his passion for food now intertwined with a sense of purpose he'd never known before. And Ana, the heart of it all, had grown from a waitress into a leader, inspiring everyone around her with her quiet strength and unwavering compassion. As the day wore on, more people filed into the restaurant, each bringing their own stories, laughter, and warmth. The once empty restaurant now felt alive, a testament to what could happen when people came together with open hearts. Later that evening, as the last of the customers left and the chairs were stacked on tables, Miguel and Luis lingered near the door, waiting for Ana to finish closing up. She ruffled their hair, smiling as she handed them each a small bag of leftover bread and fruit for the next day. "You two get home safe," she said, watching them step out into the crisp evening air. Miguel turned back to look at her, his face serious for a moment. "Miss Ana, thank you for everything. One day, I want to help people, too. Like you and Mr. Mendieta." Ana felt her heart swell as she watched the boys disappear into the night. Their words reminded her of why she had started all this, and she knew that this was only the beginning. She didn't know where the journey would lead, but she was certain that the Flavor Corner would continue to be a place of refuge, hope, and kindness for all who came through its doors. As she turned off the lights and locked up, a deep sense of peace settled over her. She walked out into the evening, where the last traces of light lingered in the sky, a symbol of the new dawn that had come to the restaurant and to her life. She knew that she had not only found a purpose but also a family, and as she stepped into the night, she carried that warmth with her, ready to face whatever the future held with a heart full of hope. Weeks turned into months, and the Flavor Corner blossomed into a true community hub. Word spread far beyond the neighborhood, and soon, people from all over the city came to visit, drawn by the story of transformation and the spirit of generosity that had breathed new life into the restaurant. Locals felt a sense of pride and ownership over the space, treating it as if it were a shared family gathering spot. Everyone knew that the Flavor Corner wasn't just a place to eat, it was a place to belong. Ana settled into her role as manager with a newfound confidence, overseeing daily operations and handling everything from menu planning to community outreach. She even coordinated weekly events, where local musicians, poets, and storytellers shared their talents. Some nights, the restaurant was filled with music and laughter as patrons gathered to celebrate birthdays or anniversaries, all in the same spirit of warmth and connection. The Heart menu continued to grow, thanks to donations and the efforts of community volunteers who offered their time and resources. Retired chefs came in once a month to help Joaquin prepare special meals, while local farmers and grocers donated fresh ingredients. The menu was a blend of wholesome dishes, hearty soups, and comforting stews, each one crafted with the same love that had started it all. One Saturday evening, a small group of children gathered at a table near the front, each of them immersed in coloring books and crayons donated by a nearby bookstore. Among them were Miguel and Luis, who had quickly become part of the restaurant family. Mendieta had arranged for them to attend a nearby school, covering their tuition and even organizing an after-school mentorship program. The boys, who had once wandered the streets looking for shelter, now thrived in the warmth of the restaurant's community. On a chilly winter's night, Mendieta decided to hold a special dinner to thank the volunteers, donors, and friends who had supported the Flavor Corner's new mission. The restaurant was beautifully decorated with candles, fresh greenery, and handmade banners created by neighborhood children. Tables were set up family-style, encouraging everyone to sit together, talk, and share stories over a warm meal. As the dinner progressed, Mendieta rose from his seat, his gaze sweeping over the room, taking in the faces of those who had come together to support a simple idea that had grown beyond anyone's expectations. "Thank you all for being here, for believing in this place and in each other. The Flavor Corner is more than a restaurant now. It's a place where kindness and generosity flow freely, where we all come together to support one another." The crowd responded with applause, smiles, and nods. Mendieta continued, his voice full of pride and humility. This place started with a single act of kindness from Anna, he said, gesturing toward her. She reminded me, and all of us, that the simplest gestures can transform lives. Anna, you are the heart of this place, and none of this would be possible without you. Anna, her cheeks flushed with both pride and shyness, smiled as the room erupted in applause. She hadn't anticipated the impact of her actions that rainy day, but seeing the warmth in the eyes of those around her, she knew she had found her true calling. Mendieta motioned for her to join him. I have something to share with everyone here. I've been inspired by what we've accomplished, and I want to expand this mission. We're going to start a new project, the Heart Network. Together, we'll open more restaurants like the Flavor Corner throughout the city, each one dedicated to serving those in need and providing a safe space for anyone who walks through the door. The announcement was met with awe and excitement, as the crowd erupted into cheers and clapping. Carmen, Joaquin, and even Miguel and Luis looked at Anna, their faces shining with joy. The restaurant's mission was about to grow, touching lives far beyond the neighborhood. After the celebration wound down and the last of the guests had left, Anna lingered in the quiet restaurant. She thought back to the beginning, to that rainy day when two hungry boys had looked in through the window. She had made a decision then, one that had cost her a job but opened up a new world. Mendieta walked over to her, his voice gentle. It's amazing, isn't it? How one small act can set off a chain of change. Anna nodded, her gaze thoughtful as she looked around the space that had become her second home. I never imagined it would lead here. But now, I can't imagine doing anything else. That's because you found your purpose, Anna. And it's only the beginning. The two of them stood in silence, taking in the peace that filled the restaurant. In the dim glow of the remaining candles, the Flavor Corner felt more alive than ever, ready to carry its spirit of kindness forward. As they locked up for the night, Anna glanced back one last time. She knew that, beyond the walls of the restaurant, the seeds of the Heart Network were already planted, waiting to grow. With a heart full of gratitude and a renewed sense of purpose, she stepped out into the night, ready to keep spreading the warmth of the Flavor Corner wherever she went. In the following months, the Heart Network began to take shape, spreading the ethos of the Flavor Corner throughout the city. Anna, now a central figure in the initiative, worked closely with Mendieta to plan the new locations. Each restaurant was designed not only to serve food but also to serve as a community hub, offering job training programs, after-school activities for kids, and workshops led by local volunteers. Every new restaurant had its own heart wall, a mural space dedicated to stories and messages of gratitude from those who had been touched by the kindness of the community. These walls became an evolving testament to the impact that one small act could have, filled with handwritten notes, children's drawings, and photographs that captured moments of connection and hope. One afternoon, as Anna was preparing for the grand opening of the latest location, she received an unexpected visitor. It was Miguel and Luis, now a few inches taller and dressed in school uniforms. They each held a small bouquet of wildflowers, tied with string, and wore shy smiles as they approached her. Miss Anna, we wanted to give you these, Miguel said, extending the flowers. Anna knelt down, her heart swelling with affection as she took the bouquets from them. Thank you, boys. You two have no idea how much this means to me. Luis looked up at her with earnest eyes. You know, Miss Anna, we want to work here when we're older. We want to help people like you do. Anna's eyes filled with tears as she hugged the boys, realizing that they, too, had been transformed by their experiences at the Flavor Corner. They were no longer the hungry, uncertain children who had sought shelter on a rainy day. They were blossoming, filled with dreams and a determination to give back to others in the same way they had been given to. When that day comes, we'll have a place waiting for you both, Anna promised, her voice thick with emotion. As the boys left, Anna returned to the preparations with a renewed sense of purpose. Each location was not just another restaurant but a beacon of hope that would inspire the next generation. And Miguel and Luis were proof that the spirit of the Heart Network was already taking root in young hearts. At the opening event that evening, people from all walks of life gathered. Former patrons of the Flavor Corner, local leaders, and families who had been touched by the network's kindness filled the space. Mendieta gave a heartfelt speech, expressing gratitude for everyone who had supported the vision and emphasizing the power of community. When he introduced Anna as the heartbeat of the Heart Network, she stepped forward, met by a wave of applause. Thank you all, Anna began, looking out at the crowd, for believing in this journey. This started as a simple act of kindness, but it's become so much more than I could have ever imagined. Every person who steps through these doors brings something unique, something precious. And that's what makes this place special, it belongs to all of us. As she spoke, she noticed Miguel and Luis standing with their guardians, beaming with pride. She smiled back at them, knowing that they, along with every person in the room, were part of this legacy. When the applause subsided, people mingled, shared stories, and enjoyed the food prepared by Joaquin and his team. Dona Patricia, who had become a beloved regular at each location, held court at a table, sharing tales of her youth and Antonio Mendez's original restaurant. Each guest, no matter who they were or where they came from, felt a part of something greater that night. Over the following weeks, the Heart Network continued to grow, and stories of transformation emerged from every location. Carmen was now a lead trainer, teaching new staff about the importance of empathy and kindness in their work. Joaquin led culinary workshops, teaching not only cooking techniques but also the joy of creating something meaningful for others. Ana, though busier than ever, remained grounded by her purpose. Every time she visited a new location, she took a moment to read the messages on the heart wall, reminding herself of the impact a single gesture could have. These walls, filled with stories of people who had found comfort, community, and inspiration, were a reminder of the journey that had started on that rainy day. One evening, as she walked home under a sky filled with stars, Ana realized how much her life had changed. She had found a purpose that went beyond her wildest dreams, a mission that had brought together countless people and transformed lives, including her own. The world was still vast, still filled with challenges, but Ana felt a quiet certainty. With compassion as her guide, there was no limit to what she, Mendieta, and their community could achieve together. And as she looked up at the stars, she felt a sense of peace, knowing that every restaurant in the Heart Network was a light in the darkness, a place where kindness lived and grew, one act at a time.